Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back. Just gonna wait one more minute in case we have more people joining here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about self-inquiry and this dyad technique that we're using at this retreat. So many of you have experienced this technique, but for those who haven't, and for even those who have experienced it, not everyone has had the flip or the awakening that can happen with this technique. So I'm going to try and convey. We really can't make this awakening happen, but we can create the optimal conditions for it to happen. So I really want to try to convey what those optimal conditions are. So I'll maybe first start out just by addressing, the question, what is self-inquiry? What is this really about? It's something that, the saints and sages throughout the millennia have talked about and pointed towards, to know thyself. What does that mean? Know thyself. So it's, whatever the conditioned mind thinks it is, it's not that. It's finding out who you are beyond that conditioned mind. Finding out who you are beyond the body mind. So, there's something that draws us to this self-inquiry at a certain point on the path. This, this longing for realizing the truth of who and what we are. And that's the most important thing in self-inquiry, is this sort of earnest desire to really know the truth, to really want to know the truth of who and what we are. And of course, no one can tell you. It has to be experienced directly. So I'm going to use words, I'm going to talk about it, but I can't convey it, because it's an unveiling, a stripping away to recognize that awareness that has always been present. It's to realize that awareness that was there when you were a baby, before there were any real thoughts or any concepts in the mind. It was there. That awareness was there when you were a little kid, a teenager. It's here right now. It's the same awareness that, is sort of shining through, or the knower of all of these characters, all of these little avatars on our screen right now. There's one awareness behind that. And awakening to, realizing the truth of who and what you are beyond this limited body mind is the most important step in the journey to liberation. When you find out that, directly who you are, you find out also who, and what the false I is. The one that suffers in life is that false I, the false self. So, awakening is the first step to freedom from suffering, the first real step. And this technique is the most effective technique that I've encountered on the planet. And I've tried a lot of different things in my journey, and so this dyad process has been around since the 1970s. It was created by someone named Charles Berner. It became somewhat popular. There were these things called enlightenment intensives. People would get together and do these 3-day intensives. But it's sort of died out now. There's not a lot of people doing these intensives. And unfortunately, most of the traditions that are here to bring about awakening, they didn't really adopt this technique for whatever reason. Maybe the attachment to tradition was very strong, or for whatever reason, there were a few Zen teachers and few Zen centers that did adopt this technique, but it didn't become popular. So, but I think it's really an important technique in the world, because it really hones in on these conditions that make awakening possible. So what are those conditions? What is it that makes awakening more likely to happen? In this technique, what we're doing, we're going to be, working in dyads, working with a partner. One person is going to give an imperative. They're going to say, "Tell me who you are." And really, really mean it, really convey a sense of wanting to know who this other being is. And then the person who receives that imperative will intend to directly experience who they are. And in this process, at first, as Ramana Maharshi said, when we inquire into who we are, at first what we see is the false I. At first what we see is the false self. So what happens is, we receive the imperative, "Tell me who you are," and maybe the mind will be looking for an answer, or will be confused, or trying to figure it out. Or there can be many different levels or ways that we can respond. So the technique is, we intend to directly experience our true nature. So tell me who you are. We go within, or we have an intention to directly experience who and what we are, and then we simply report what is coming up within the self structure as a result of that inquiry. So it could be anything that comes up. Maybe when our partner is looking into our eyes and they say, "Tell me who you are," maybe there's a feeling in the heart. Maybe there's a contraction, maybe there's energy, maybe there's panic, maybe there's confusion, maybe there's an image of my dog when I was 10 years old. It could be absolutely anything. And the brilliant thing about this technique that Charles Berner realized is that when we have this true intention to know the truth of who we are, this sort of clearing process starts to happen. Everything that needs to be cleared from the mind in order to directly experience who we are will come to the surface. So we don't have to actually do anything other than intend to directly experience who and what we are. And that's not a doing. So we simply report, what comes up in the mind-body as a result of that inquiry. So, this, moment where we receive the imperative, tell me who you are. In that moment, it's like, when Ramana said, turn your attention towards the self. His whole self-inquiry method was to just turn towards the self. And, he said to drop seeking. In that moment when we receive the imperative, drop that seeking mind, turn attention inward. So we give up the ego, we give up the egoic mind, the doer, and we directly experience who we are at the heart of our being, this pure awareness, pure consciousness that is here. We intend to directly experience that which we are. So that, that awareness is just purely aware. Awareness doesn't have to do anything, to be aware. It just is aware. So awareness doesn't have to find itself. It's just here. But we're so habituated to focusing on the conditioned mind, to doing, that we miss this realm of being. So the sense of I gets entangled with this character that we're playing. We're born into this human experience, playing this character. We're in this human avatar, and it's like someone who is in a play, and they're playing a character, and they forget that they're playing the character. We've forgotten who we are. So we can wake up, we can remember. Or it's the analogy I like to use, it's like being in a, if you go into a VR game, you put on the headset, you can play an infinite number of characters in that game, in that VR headset. But who are you, in that game? The avatar is interchangeable. But there's a consciousness, there's the one experiencing everything, the one who's playing this character. So in this process, we want to directly experience that one. So I'm going to give a quote from Ramana. I love this quote. So all that is needed is to give up thinking of objects other than the self. Self-inquiry is not thinking of the self, but it is giving up thinking of the not self. So this is a very subtle and profound realization when it lands, when we get it. So in order to inquire, we don't, there's no thinking required. There's no doing required. We just give up this fixation on doing and thinking and this controlling mind. The most common thing, one of the most common obstacles in this practice is, especially for people who are perfectionists, they want to get it right. Like, how do I do this? How do I do it? I don't get it. And we have to allow that conditioned mind that is used to being in control to be a don't know mind. We allow that conditioned mind to sort of unhook. We relax into the awareness that is right here and intend to directly experience that. So this mind that wants to get it right, the mind that is quite often confused, as we go deeper into it, the mind can sometimes put up many defenses. It can get very tired, and these are all good things. These are all the mind loosening its grip. So if the mind is confused or tired, it's actually a great time to do this inquiry. It's actually perfect because its defenses are down. So this dyad process, it really functions the same way that all sadhana functions. The samyama that I talked about earlier, Patanjali's practice, the last 3 limbs of yoga, this functions exactly the same way as meditation. So we're showing up with presence, attention, being here now, and then we just observe reality as it is, surrendering, allowing everything to be as it is. And we're just reporting to our partner, whatever comes up, as a result of that inquiry. And this clearing starts to happen. This clearing process will happen very rapidly. And sometimes, if we have traumas or whatever incomplete experiences we've had in life, we have these experiences, sometimes as a child, whatever happened in our life, the charge of that experience was very maybe strong, and we couldn't fully experience it in the moment. So the energy of that experience pushes into the unconscious. It creates a little self in the unconscious. And so, all of the ego patterns, the many patterns within the ego structure are just made up of incomplete experiences. Just these patterns of, really it's a resistance pattern where, we couldn't fully experience it. And our wiring couldn't handle it, so it branched off, creating these new neural pathways in the unconscious. So, so the way that we reintegrate, the way we bring back that energy is we communicate it fully. When we complete that experience. So when that, whatever that is that lives in the unconscious, when it comes to the surface as a thought, an emotion, a feeling, when we completely communicate it with our partner, there's a clearing. There's a clearing of that samskara. So we allow these samskaras to come up. And the person who will be delivering the imperative, will say, "Tell me who you are," and then they'll fall into a witnessing position. So they become a neutral witness, and they just allow their partner to express whatever's coming up as a result of that inquiry. And it's that neutrality, that allowing, that really makes this technique work. Almost every interaction we have with other human beings is we keep it on the just the mental level, and we never experience clearing. if something comes up in a relationship, a difficult emotion, or one of these samskaras comes up, we share it with someone. It's very rare for someone to just receive it as a witness without evaluating in any way. Usually when there's something being communicated, we're evaluating it. Or if there's sort of an emotion attached to it or pain, we try and our own ego will try and fix that person or try and take away their pain, try and respond to it or evaluate it in some way. So this clearing process doesn't often happen in day-to-day life. And so this is a really unique opportunity to clear the mind, to re-experience all of these incomplete experiences. And these incomplete experiences or samskaras, they can also come up during our meditation practice, and they do, but the process is slower. There's something about being witnessed and sharing it completely, really getting it across to our partner, whatever it is. There's something about that process that accelerates the clearing process. Sometimes there are different sort of challenges that come up in this process. Sometimes, people will feel like they're failing in some way to awaken. It's like, I'm not getting it. I'm not directly experiencing who I am. And then what happens is sometimes, there may be phenomena coming up in the mind-body, but it sometimes gets dismissed because someone is looking for something in particular. So if I inquire into my true nature, and then, some thoughts come up in the mind is, maybe there's self-doubt or maybe there's nothing much happening in the mind, but there's this subtle knowing, like, this isn't it, this is just thoughts. It's just thoughts coming up. So I'm not, I'm not my thoughts. So I don't care about that. I want to, the technique is to share fully whatever comes up. So the thoughts are important. We don't want to reject or push away thinking. This is actually, by going into the self structure, making all of what is in the unconscious conscious. This is how we clear the mind, and then at some point, awareness may just be here. It always is here, but it may wake up to itself, and we can't make that happen. We can just keep clearing. So these are the conditions that we're looking for. A mind that is clear, a mind that is not seeking and searching, but simply reporting on itself. We're using the mind as a reporting tool to report about itself. This process, when we really get it, it's a beautiful process. It's when we talk about awakening, it seems like there's some goal, but it's tricky. It's dangerous to look at this as if there's some sort of agenda to bring about awakening. Actually, it is the process itself, as we really get into it, we see how this communication works. We can start to be more present with our partner. We can be more here, more free, allowing whatever's coming up to just come through, and it starts to feel actually really good, this sort of unburdening. It's like when we're a little kid, we learn to shut down our naturalness. Our parents and teachers, if we're too something, too anything, they want to correct that. They want to, and then we very quickly learn what pleases others. So we turn ourselves into this character that is, it's responding to how we're seen by others. And it's very freeing in this process to just be you, just be natural, just allow whatever's coming up. There's nothing that isn't allowed in this process. Everything that stays, everything that comes up in the dyad stays in the dyad. There's nothing recorded in this process. The recording is only happening in this talk of me talking. So there's a safe container to allow the self structure to start to really express itself. I think the main thing that I want to convey is that, in that moment where you receive the imperative, just know that awakening is unattainable by the conditioned self. The little self has to fail. The little self has to be a not knowing self. So this is the only game that you win by giving up. You give up control. You give up the knowing, surrender, and in that stillness of surrender, there's a possibility to directly experience the truth. So I'm going to, I have a little video. This is a video specifically on how we do these dyads with Zoom. And there's particular considerations here for working in Zoom. And so I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to say a few more things, and then we're going to jump in. And I think what we'll do, we'll be all going into breakout rooms. Tayama will be setting those up. And the first dyad will just be a 20-minute dyad. And then we're going to check in here, and I'd like to hear from people just to hear how it goes. And if there's any questions, there's always certain questions that come up in this process. So I'm going to queue up this video. Self-inquiry dyads are one of the most expedient ways to bring about Kensho, or awakening to your true nature, especially when done in a retreat, which creates conditions of no escape for the egoic mind. Doing self-inquiry dyads via Zoom works really well. I'm going to run through the process and address some of the unique considerations of doing dyads via Zoom so that you have the optimal experience. First, make sure that your camera is set up so that you can look directly into your partner's eyes. When you're in the dyad, it's best that you're paying attention to your partner, looking at their image, not staring at the camera. The meeting automatically begins in speaker view, and because of this, you can see your own video when you're speaking. But you don't want to see yourself when you're speaking, you want to see your partner. So hover over your video and click the ellipses button in your video to display the menu. Then choose Hide Self View. You will no longer see the video of yourself, even though others in the meeting can see the video of you. Depending on the number of participants, sometimes there will be 3 people in the breakout rooms. So instead of a dyad, it will be a triad. In this case, 2 people will be witnesses, while 1 person does the inquiry. Instead of saying, "Tell me who you are," the imperative will be, "Tell us who you are." Please make sure that you are unmuted when you start the dyads, and that your camera is turned on. If you have technical problems or problems with the technique, there's a button to contact the facilitator. Click here to ask the host for help. Once you are split off into dyad groups, please take note of the room number that you are assigned to. Sometimes people will lose their internet connection, and when you enter back into the meeting, you can just tell the tech host the room number, and they will put you back with the same partner. Once you have entered a breakout room, decide who will give the imperative first.
Do you want me to give you the imperative?
Sure, go ahead. The one who gives the imperative will be the witness, and the other partner will do the inquiry. Before giving the imperative, feel your intention to want to know who this being is in front of you. When you say, "Tell me who you are," make it sincere. You really want to know who this being is.
Tell me who you are.
The witness looks directly into the eyes of the inquirer and says, "Tell me who you are." The witness does not nod, make facial responses, or make any sound while witnessing. Do not change the imperative. The imperative is, "Tell me who you are." It is not, "Who are you?" And it is not, "Can you tell me who you are?" If you ask, "Who are you?" or "Can you tell me who you are?" these are questions. The imperative, "Tell me who you are," is not a question, but a command. It is an imperative to authentically communicate as your true self. Understand that this is not a question. Therefore, we're not looking for an answer on the level of the conditioned mind. "Tell me who you are" is a command. Tell me, convey to me who you are. The person inquiring intends to directly experience their true nature. Directly means not via the mind. When you receive the imperative, get a sense of I amness, of present awareness or beingness, that which has always been present, even when you were a little kid. Intend to directly experience who you are. Another way of saying this is, be still and know. Be still and get a sense of that primordial consciousness that is ever present. When you receive the imperative, you can take a moment. If you want to close your eyes and go inward, that's fine. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Once you have inquired directly, then observe anything that comes up within the self-structure as a result of that inquiry. Just remain open to anything that wants to come up to the surface. Strong sensations in the forehead, in the third eye area. And share it as fully as you can with your partner. Whatever comes up as a result of the inquiry, it may be words or sounds, emotions, laughs, cries, memories, feelings. It's important to be free and not censor or suppress any thoughts, beliefs, emotions, or phenomena. Your inquiry will generally be around 5 to 6 minutes. Sometimes it's less, sometimes longer. Don't worry about the length of time, but at the same time, try not to take up all the time. 40 minutes is too long. And don't try to get off the hook too quickly. 1 or 2 minutes is too short. It's important that the witness remains totally neutral. No facial expressions. No positive or negative feedback. This lack of feedback allows the person doing the inquiry to be totally free. There's a sense that they're being heard, they're being listened to, but not judged in any way. There is neither encouragement, nor is there a reaction or contraction to anything being said. The witness should try their best to understand their partner. If what is being said is not clear, the one thing the witness can say is, "Can you clarify that, please?"
Can you clarify that?
Be especially conscious of words like I, me, my, mine, or myself. Don't use these words unconsciously. Find out, who do these words point to? We often use these words to reinforce identification with the false self, with the character. Instead of saying, "I am angry," or "I am tired," go into it. Find out the truth. Is it true that I am angry? Or is it more true to say that anger is arising, to say that the character is angry? Who are you? When you say I, are you referring to the false self? The facilitators will enter your room with their camera off. Simply respond to their prompts, maintaining eye contact with your partner. When you feel that your share is complete, then you can say thank you and give a little namaste with your hands.
Thank you.
If at any point during the inquiry you feel that you are stuck, you can ask yourself, what is the most real thing that is observable in this moment? How is this exercise making me feel? Is there something being held back that wants to be expressed? Most importantly, have fun with it. Be childlike, spontaneous, and free with your sharing. As you are more and more able to convey who you are, you may let go of the burden of trying to do it right, the burden of knowing, just letting the mind be a don't know mind or a beginner's mind. Outside of the actual dyad process, please do not chat with your partner. This is not about having a conversation. This is an exercise designed for you to have a direct experience of your true nature. If you chat or engage in conversation, you are activating the conditioned mind, and you will lose progress. Okay, so a few things I just want to mention before we dive in. So I see there was quite a bit of activity in the chat there. So one of the questions that came up is, when we receive the imperative, tell me who you are. Can I close my eyes? Can I go inward? And people do this, there's no right or wrong way to do it. So you can, if it feels right for you, you can go inward, close your eyes. But when it comes time to report whatever comes up as a result of that inquiry, we want to open our eyes and connect with our partner's eyes. So when we're sharing, we want to be connected to our partner. We want to be looking directly into their eyes. But when you're doing the inquiry, whatever you want to do, eyes open, eyes closed, doesn't matter, whatever works. So we'll be going, normally the dyads are 40 minutes long, so you'll be with one partner for 40 minutes. And as it said in the video, we want to switch back and forth. You'll do your inquiry for roughly around 5 minutes. Some of the traditions will use a timer. I don't like to use a timer because sometimes in the middle of a share, the timer will go off. It feels like it cuts off the flow or cuts off so we just want to be mindful that we don't take up all the time, and we want to be mindful that we don't try and get off the hook too quickly as well. Really have a complete share, really observe whatever's coming up. And there sometimes people will say there's nothing really coming, there's nothing much happening. And that's fine. But I would say, subtle is sometimes very significant. So sometimes, usually at this point in the retreat, the mind is usually somewhat active. There's usually stuff to report. But at some point, the mind may settle down, or if you've been doing a lot of meditation, maybe the mind is very quiet. It's a beautiful place to be. So subtle is significant. There may be something deep in the unconscious that wants to come to the surface. You might be sitting there with some sort of belief or subtle knowing or preconception. The mind might be looking for something. The mind might be dissatisfied. So we want to catch these subtle processes of the mind and share them. Or maybe there's the whole thing is frustrating, so we share that. Everything is fair game. What does frustration feel like? Where does it live in the body? Share that. Whatever is authentically coming up. What is the most real thing in the moment? As Tayama mentioned in the chat, if you didn't see it, if you're not participating in this, please exit the Zoom meeting. Don't just turn off your video, because you'll get put into a room and then somebody will be with a non-functional partner. So please, if you're going to stay in for this, make sure that your video is turned on and that you're active with your partner. We have a number of facilitators. So as we go deeper into the retreat, the facilitators will become more and more active. So you may have a facilitator in your room. They're going to have their video off. So you might see an extra little icon in there. So they're just eavesdropping to make sure that you're doing the technique correctly. They may interject if there is a problem with the technique, or if something needs to be corrected or said. And as we go deeper into the retreat, the facilitators will also do a form of pointing. So they may ask you a question. So they may just unmute and this question will come out of nowhere. And if that happens, just respond to their question. So this pointing, it probably won't be happening for the next couple of days. The beginning of the retreat, we don't usually do that pointing. So most of what the facilitators will be doing is just related to the technique itself. But you never know. There might be an opportunity. So I think the last thing I'll say, the imperative, we just say it once. You don't, repeat the imperative to your partner unless, like if 4 minutes go by or something like that, and it seems like your partner's going out, zoning out, then it's okay to deliver the imperative again. But we don't want to repeat the imperative. You don't want to hammer your partner with the imperative. It's not necessary. And the last thing, it was mentioned in the video, but I'll stress it again. This is one of the unique things that we do with this technique here. It's a little bit different than the Charles Berner technique, but what we do is really start to investigate the use of the word I. When I say I, or me, or mine, what am I referring to? So whenever those words come up, it's hard. We're so habituated to using the word I, and that's fine. We can use it, but I encourage you to investigate. It's an opportunity every time the word I comes up. Who is that referring to? Is this the character? Is this the false I, or is this truly who I am? Who am I? So, so really take that opportunity to investigate the I and try to use it only when it's true. Is it true when I'm saying I, is what I'm saying true? Really investigate, go into it, find out. And I think that's about it. I think we're ready to dive in. So, Tayama just mentioned, you want to turn your cameras on, obviously, and your once you're in the breakout rooms, your audio as well. Make a note of your room number when you jump in. If you get kicked out of your room for whatever reason, you can go back in the waiting room, and Tayama will put you back into your room with the same partner. So if your internet cuts out or something like that. So I think somebody's asking a 5-minute break before we start. That's probably a good idea. So why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and dive in. Thank you.